Yo, what is up guys, and welcome back to McAD's Entertainment. I'm your host as always, Adam McGahee. Well, the time has finally arrived. One of my personal favorite alternate universe Marvel comics has finally gotten an animated adaptation, and I could not be happier. I of course am talking about Marvel Zombies, which had their glorious Undead premiere in the latest episode of Marvel's What If that just aired on Disney+. This show keeps getting better episode by episode, and I must say that this was the best one yet. My personal bias, of course, because I have read the Marvel Zombies comics regularly since they came out in 2006, way back when I was in middle school. I know, I'm an old man, but hey, this episode brought some joy back into these old bones. While the episode could not be quite as bloody as the comics, given the family-friendly streaming service it is hosted on, this was arguably the most gory piece of Marvel content we've gotten yet, and that includes the movies. Since this is a story from an alternate reality, the writers were able to be as free as they wanted to kill off whoever they wanted in this episode, and man, there were quite a few deaths. While the plot of the comic and the episode are quite different, the episode paid several important homages to its print origins, so I wanted to take today's video to break down each of the character deaths from the episode, both zombie and human, and compare to how these characters died in the comic zombie timeline. If you cannot tell already, this video will be filled to the zombie brim with spoilers from the episode and comics, so major spoiler warning ahead. The episode starts out with an alternate Bruce Banner being sent back to Earth by Heimdall after the beginning events of Infinity War. He crash lands in the Sanctum Sanctorum of Doctor Strange to warn the planet of Thanos' arrival, but discovers nobody is home. He throws on what appears to be some of Wong's spare clothes and heads out to the empty streets of New York, which seems to have been absolutely devastated. He then comes across Ebony Maw and Cole Obsidian, who have come to announce Thanos' arrival, only for what appears to be Iron Man's hand to come out from a mystic portal and blast Squidward right in the back of the head, as Doctor Strange and Wong also appear and begin to battle the aliens. At first overjoyed to see his fellow Avengers come to his aid, Bruce Banner is quick to realize that not all is good in the hood as the heroes begin eating the foes they just defeated. It is then revealed that the trio have been transformed into bloodthirsty zombies and have their eyes set on a very human Hulk as their next snack. While Ebony Maw and Cole Obsidian were the first to die in the episode, they were not featured in the original Marvel Zombie comic, so there is no zombie death to compare them to. But regardless, rest in peace to my homies. They just wanted to make their boss happy. The next to meet a tragic end is none other than Zombie Wong, who got his head sliced off by one of his own mystic portals after Doctor Strange's cape came to Banner's rescue. Poor Wong also met a rather bloody end in the pages of Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness, as Ash Williams and the X-Men Dazzler went to the Sanctum Sanctorum to seek out the likes of Doctor Strange to help find a cure to the zombie plague. Instead, they come across a zombified Dr. Druid munching on the innards of a murdered Wong. Ash kindly puts a boomstick to the doctor's head and ends him, but it was sadly too late for poor Wong. No matter what universe he's from, the big guy sadly does not survive the zombie apocalypse. Rest in peace to everyone's favorite Marvel Magic Man, Wong. The next to die in the episode was none other than the zombified Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange, who had his flesh completely eviscerated by a swarm of 1,000 insects summoned by the Wasp. This death was completely over the top and awesome, and honestly may have his comic death beat, for in the pages of Ultimate Fantastic Four, Zombie Doctor Strange met his magical end after Magneto dropped hundreds of cars upon the zombie horde. Poor Steven was squashed by the vehicles, which then proceeded to explode. So between having thousands of bugs tear you apart and being squashed and blown up by a car, I must say Zombie Doctor Strange has met quite an epic end in both print and animation. R.I.P. to the Sorcerer Supreme. Right after the death of Doctor Strange, we get the death of none other than Iron Man, who was also torn apart by Wasp Insect Army, only for her to go one step further and take things into Mortal Kombat territory, where she uses her energy blast to zap Tony's head right off, only for it to fall right into the ground and be eaten by her giant pet ant. This was completely unnecessary, but I loved every second of it. Iron Man also met quite the bloody end in the pages of Marvel Zombies 2 after an out-of-control zombie Hulk went on a rampage, destroying several of the zombie heroes in his path. Tony attempted to stop the giant, but was knocked to the ground, where the Hulk proceeded to slam his foot right through Iron Man's heart, causing his organs to come pouring out of his helmet. I'm no expert in zombie biology, but I don't think he's going to be okay. Both of these demises were equally bloody, but it is sad to see him go. R.I.P. to one of the OG Avengers, Iron Man. Bruce Banner is then saved by Spider-Man, who takes him to the surviving group, where they plan to go to Camp Lehigh to answer a distress signal. We are then greeted to a flashback where we see another hero who met his kind of end, and that was Scott Lang's Ant-Man, who was eaten by Hank Pym and his wife Janet, who contracted the virus in the quantum realm. However, it is later revealed that Scott was cured of the virus by Vision and had his head placed in a jar to survive. Now this is actually a reference to the comics, where Janet is the one who survived the events of the plague and was cured of her zombie hunger. However, instead of just a jar, she got a full-on robot body for her head to command. Pretty sweet upgrade if you ask me. This was a great reference to the comics, and I'm just glad Paul Rudd did survive the apocalypse and gets to quip till the end of time. The next, very sad death of the episode is none other than Happy Hogan, who was turned into a zombie by Hawkeye and was killed after Sharon Carter used one of the repulsor gloves Happy had as a weapon against him. He also was not in the Marvel Zombies comics, so there is no death to compare it to, but it's awful to say goodbye to such a staple from the MCU. Get some rest, my man. After all the torture Peter Parker has put you through, you deserve it. The next death, possibly the most brutal in the episode in my opinion, was none other than a zombified Falcon. As the surviving heroes tried to get the subway car working to get to safety, they were ambushed by a swarm of the undead, which included Sam Wilson's Falcon. Bucky went on the offense, opening fire on his former friend, but Zombie Sam was able to get the upper hand. Just before he can help himself to a Winter Soldier lunch, head of the Dora Milaje Okoye leapt behind the former hero, cutting him completely in half with her spear. This was absolutely brutal, and I screamed out loud when this happened. Okoye never ceases to be awesome. In the comics, Zombie Sam meets his end after the Silver Surfer comes to Earth to announce the arrival of Galactus. The zombies attack the Surfer, hoping they will get a nice silver-wrapped lunch. The warrior does not go down without a fight, as he unleashes waves of cosmic energy out of his hands. One of the beams just so happens to launch right into the throat of Falcon, separating his head from his bird costume body. Gotta say, when compared to the comic, the show death was absolutely bloodier and better. R.I.P. Falcon, we'll never get to hear you and Bucky argue in this universe. I'm sure he's not complaining though. The next death in the episode came from none other than a zombified Captain America. As the group get the train moving, thinking they had gotten away from the Horde, they're intercepted by Steve Rogers, who, even in undeath, can do this all day and will stop at nothing to get his dinner. He finds and feasts upon Sharon Carter, where he is then met by his former friend, turned villain, turned hero Bucky Barnes, who knows what must be done. The pair engage in an incredible hand-to-hand fight where Steve viciously attacks. He attempts to bite Bucky, who dodges and kicks the super soldier away. Cap then does his classic shield toss at Bucky, who proceeds to catch the shield and throws it right back, slicing Steve right in half. His severed remains then crumble onto the train tracks, marking the end of the line for the once great American hero. Cap also met quite the violent end in the comics, as his shield also proved to be his greatest downfall when Magneto used it to cut his head in half, exposing his brain. The Red Skull then used this obvious weakness to his advantage by ripping the organ right out of Steve's head. So in both zombie universes, Captain America just can't seem to stay ahead of the competition. Rest in peace to this original Avenger. Right after this, a zombified Sharon Carter met her demise after Wasp shrunk down, flew into her mouth, and then expanded, causing her to explode in Sharon chunks everywhere. Sharon did not appear in the main zombie comics, but this death does go to give credence to the theory that If Ant-Man were to shrink down and go into a certain section of Thanos' body and expand, it would have made a quick and easy victory for the Avengers in the main timeline. Just saying. The group is dwindling down fast, and it is sad to say goodbye to Sharon. Rest in peace. We promise we won't tell your Aunt Peggy that you kissed her boyfriend. The next to meet their end is none other than Hope Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, who was honestly one of the MVPs of this episode. She became infected with the virus after some of the remains of the zombie Sharon entered a cut on her arm. She then sacrifices herself after the train runs out of fuel by going giant and marching through hundreds of undead to transport the rest of the group to Camp Lehigh. The zombie army overwhelms her as she gets the group to safety, where they knock her over and proceed to feed on her. As mentioned previously in the comics, it was the Janet Wasp who survived and had her head put in a cool robot body. I wish we could say the same about Hope. RIP to the MVP of this episode. The What If series has really gone to show just how powerful PIM tech can be. The group then get to the camp, where they discover that the distress signal came from none other than Vision, who is not infected due to him being an android. It is here where he reveals that he was able to cure Scott, but Bucky suspects that something is wrong. He discovers a zombified Wanda Maximoff within the corridors of the facility and finds a very much alive but wounded Black Panther who is missing a leg. It is revealed that in order to keep his zombie girlfriend happy, Vision was broadcasting the signal to lure survivors there, where he would then feed them to Wanda. He was even keeping Black Panther on ice, sawing off his limbs to feed her as a backup food source. Now this is a direct homage to the comics, as Giant Man did the same exact thing to give himself an emergency snack. Poor Black Panther. Dude does survive the apocalypse, but definitely is coming out with some strong PTSD. That vibranium blood must be worth savoring to them zombies. After confronting Vision about his horrid actions, the group is then terrified to learn they awaken the zombie Wanda, who puts her full power on display, ready to help herself to an Avengers dinner. Her first victim is sadly Ant-Man's Kurt, who is dragged into the darkness and eaten by his own worst fear, the Baba Yaga. He has no comic death to compare this to, but nothing is worse than getting taken out by the Baba Yaga. RIP, man, you will be missed. As the group attempts to escape, Okoye is then grabbed by Scarlet Witch's energy, where she then sacrifices herself so they can get away. She is then snatched into the energy and eaten by the rampaging Wanda. She is also not featured in the comics, but it was devastating to see another awesome MCU character meet their end. RIP, Okoye. Upon witnessing this carnage, Vision realizes how twisted and selfish his deeds were, and he helps the group escape to the nearby jet. To punish himself for the anguish he caused, he then commits suicide by ripping the Mind Stone out of his own head, laying dead just as he did after the events of Infinity War. While this is super dark and disturbing, his comic death is a fate worse than death. In the comic, a zombie Kingpin and Scarlet Witch work together and dismantle Vision, where they strap him to a machine that forces him to scan the Earth of all transmissions from human survivors so the zombies can find and eat them. Honestly, if I were Vision, I think I'd just rip the band-aid off and go with the Mind Stone death. At least that's quick and permanent. RIP Red and Green Metal Guy. Being a simp is not cool, let alone a zombie simp. Bruce Banner then picks up the Mind Stone and the group makes their way to the jet. Bucky stays behind in order to keep the zombie Scarlet Witch at bay, who upon seeing the dead Vision, displays what appears to be some remaining humanity as she seemingly mourns Vision's passing. Bucky opens fire at Wanda, but she catches the bullets and hurls Bucky several yards away. And that's honestly the last we see of him in this episode. My dude has definitely survived worse than this, so I'm not too sure he's dead. He was pretty much a main character in this episode, so if he were to die, I'm sure they would make his death rather obvious. Now in the comics though, his death was absolutely obvious. His death happened in Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness, where he was turned into a zombie and tried to take a bite out of Dazzler, only for Ash to pull out the boomstick and turn the head of the Winter Soldier into a summer piñata. So until his show death is confirmed, let's just count Bucky as taking some much needed beauty rest for now. As Black Panther, Peter, and Ant-Man's head try to get the jet started, like most horror movie cliches, are having engine troubles. Bruce Banner gives Peter the Mind Stone so that way they can take it to Wakanda and harness the cure for the world. He dives headfirst into the swarm of zombies, transforming into the Hulk, destroying the legions, until the zombified Wanda enters the arena and goes head to head with the Green Giant. Now, we only get a brief glimpse of this fight, but every second of it was absolutely awesome. The heroes get the jet started and escape, leaving the Hulk behind and leaving his fate very much in question. Like Bucky, the show seemed to not directly show Hulk's death either. Perhaps all for a reason. Maybe there'll be a part 2. However, also like Bucky, his death in the comics was also very, very obvious. His death came in the pages of Marvel Zombies 2 not long after his rampage that killed Tony Stark. After turning back into Bruce Banner, the other cured zombies decided that the best way to neutralize this unpredictable Hulk was to blow his head clean off. So, there we go. Problem solved? I'm hoping if there is a part 2 to the animated Zombieverse, that this Hulk would be alive and well and not zombified. Zombie Hulk is just bad news for everyone involved. No one wants Zombie Hulk. As the few remaining heroes make their flight to Wakanda, the end of the episode showed a very bleak destination awaiting them, as none other than a zombie Thanos, armed with the Infinity Gauntlet, was already there, with the Wakandan people infected as well. Now this was an absolutely crazy cliffhanger for a What If episode. This makes me wonder even further if we will get a part 2 of the zombie Marvel universe. At the end of the comic, Black Panther does get an awesome robot arm and leg and leads a small resistance that begins to repopulate the Earth, and Zombie Hulk even smashes Zombie Thanos' head in, so I wonder if we will see any of that. Regardless, I am just glad that we have finally got some form of Marvel Zombies in animated fashion. I was a huge fan of this episode and cannot wait for the rest of the series. Now, what are your thoughts on this episode? Did you enjoy it? Which deaths were better? The comic or the episode? Sound off in the comments. Also be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed today's content, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon to be notified of all of our latest videos. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you are awesome and loved. God bless, and I will see you in the next one.